Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon in Malaysia and in ASEAN. Very good morning in the Netherlands and the EU. Welcome to the Malaysian Dutch Business Council's virtual platform and event today. My name is Marco Winter, and on behalf of the MDBC team, I greet you from our office in Kuala Lumpur. In a few minutes, we will start the digital hour, but first a few announcements. Today's event is part of our program for the MDBC Connects Fair 2021 Q1. This morning, we reopened our virtual platform, Kivel, which we have renamed as the MDBC Village, our go-to platform to organize online events in 2021. As part of MDBC's 25th anniversary this year, we intend to bring all our members into the exhibition so that this will become our MDBC virtual directory in 2021. The first 30 members are now included, so there's plenty to already see in the fair. Please go ahead after this hour to join the fair and walk around in the exhibition. Our service providers are an integral part of the success and accreditation of the MDBC, and that's something that we really want to showcase on this particular day, the Connects Fair. In June, for the Q2 Connect Fair, we will have many more members displaying their products and services in their booth, and so we continue to expand this year. This morning, we also organized the first ever online MDBC open house, reconnecting with members in a plenary session and in breakout rooms. While we're seeing each other online today, we would like to know, though, what your expectations are on our next live engagement. So here's a very quick poll. When do you expect we can see each other again live? Could be as soon as tomorrow, because tomorrow is already April, but don't make it a April Fool's Day, please. We really want to meet you as soon as possible. Or is it going to be much later this year or even next year? So please give it a quick answer. It doesn't have to take too long. In the meantime, I will inform you that for this upcoming webinar, we have switched off your cameras and muted your mics. With the Q&A, these can be opened again a little bit later in the program. All right, let me double check. How's the poll coming in? Yes, okay. All right, let's quickly show the result of the poll so we can continue with the program. All right, most of you think it will be at the end of Q2 in June. Yes, many more of us might be vaccinated by then, but there's still quite a percentage that only expects it at the end of this year or maybe even next year. All right, well, on our side, you might have just seen the slides. We hope to start with some smaller networking events already this coming months, and especially in the next few months. All right, as part of our online engagement today, we are very pleased to partner with our member company, 27 Group, a network of management consulting firms offering business solutions in strategy, financial, and program management. 27 Group is focused on rebuilding with a cause and care, doing it the right way. Currently, Malaysia sees a strong focus on the digital economy, and last month, the Prime Minister launched the Malaysia Digital Economy Blueprint. As we have all experienced these past 12 months, it is evident digital technology is an essential tool of survival during the most challenging of crises for people, for companies, and for governments. Malaysia's digital initiative aims to empower all Malaysians to improve digital literacy and serves as a digital transformation direction plan that is able to drive the business sector to continue to compete on the global arena. With us today, Girish Ramachandran, the Executive Director of 27 Advisory, and Harish Subramaniam, the Executive Director of 27 Digital, who will take you through the 4 IR policies and strategies and digital transformation for success. There will be time for Q&A at the end. Please post your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom panel of your screen. So please not in the chat box, but in the Q&A box. We will try to bring you into the program to ask your questions verbally later. Okay, over to you, please, Girish and Harish.
Thank you, Marco, and thank you, MDBC, for inviting 27 Group to spend a bit of time on an interesting and very impactful topic. let me share my screen and take you through the first session, which is going to be on 4IR policies and strategies. And then I'll hand over to Harish to talk more into digital transformation and why it's very important and why we should all be embracing it. And then I'm going to hand back to you for the Q&A session. Let me push a full screen here. Okay, so the topic of today is essentially around 4IR policies and strategies, and this essentially has culminated into the Malaysian Digital Economy Blueprint, or what we call My Digital. So the PM announced this in February 2021, and it's a comprehensive approach towards anchoring the country's digital economy by 2030. So it's a 10-year plan, and it has various components to focus on two things. Make sure that Malaysia transforms from a digitally driven economy and looking at high income as well to be a regional leader in digital. They are expecting 22.6% of Malaysia's GDP by 2025 to be digital. Now, before going into this, I'd just like to step back and do a little bit of a backtrack. Now, in the ambit of 4IR, which is the fourth industrial revolution, is the digital component. But what many people don't realize is the difference between Industry 4.0 and 4IR. So the overarching terminology is 4IR, which is where we are moving into the cyber, the Internet of Things, networks, a lot more software integration with the biological and physical. And the third industrial revolution was about computers and electronics. And if you go back down to the steam engine, which was powering the first motor vehicle, that was the first industrial revolution. So Industry 4.0 is actually for manufacturing. So when we look at 4IR in manufacturing, they call it Industry 4.0. And everybody seems to get this mixed up. So 4IR essentially has three components which are converging. You have the physical, the digital, and the biological. And the digital side is essentially what the digital economy is about. So in a little bit more graphics, I think we can see the physical side where you're starting to see a lot of technologies around drones, for example, where you see things that are moving. We can do things a lot faster by traveling, using autonomous vehicles or 3D printing. And on the digital side, you've got all kinds of things going on, from AI to blockchain to big data and machine vision, cybersecurity. But the 4IR also converges the biological. And this is the part which we think there's huge opportunity, and especially in Malaysia. And the biological are things essentially around biochemistry, advanced material, nanotechnology, and also looking at genetics. And there are thoughts that the fifth IR is essentially around a lot of the biological and the digital coming together and being driven from that. So a little bit about some of the case studies of why these are so important and how they can be useful. We know about drones or the unmanned aircraft systems. So basically we have quite a bit of technology around using drones to do tracking and mapping and surveying. So this is very useful for agriculture. This is very useful for logistics. We heard about AirAsia doing the drone delivery service, and also for application of field matters like spraying, for example, and so on. 3D printing is the other one that has really helped manufacturers to get their product out before they actually do a mold, which costs a lot of money. You can get a 3D printed version of it out. And they're also going heavily into things like jewelry, for example, which can be done very quickly and cost effectively. Blockchain is the other component, which essentially has got a lot of things that are happening, where you essentially have a tracking of traceability all the way from your source right up to your consumer. So you're able to have authentication, you're able to have more interfaces within your value chain so that other people can come in and build platforms and apps and so on. Virtual reality is the other one that we also see huge prospects. And MR, which is mixed reality, it's a combination between virtual and augmented. Is really helping people do a lot of things. For example, like flying a drone with VR, where you can actually have a wide angle of how you're looking at different things. And also in manufacturing, they tend to use a lot of VR to do a lot of prototyping, testing, training of people who maybe have not used a particular type of equipment, a tractor, for example, or even planes go through all the VR sessions. And AI. Now, AI, we believe, is huge. It's probably got the highest potential in terms of all the different technologies. There are simple things like the AI chatbot that communicates with you up and down to build either CRM or to have different things processed. But AI is also going heavily into things like natural language processing to analyze a lot of data very fast. And this is producing huge outcomes. So in terms of Southeast Asia, I think the whole market is focusing heavily around digital. And Malaysia wants to have a sort of a larger footprint in this with at least 14 unicorns in Southeast Asia with e-commerce revenues of 25 billion, and also a data center market. The competitiveness of Malaysia right now, we are somewhere around 27th in terms of global competitiveness, and in terms of Thailand is about number 40, and of course Singapore is number 1. Now, interestingly, Singapore has already got several strategies. They even have a national AI strategy on their own, which is quite interesting. So the Malaysia's digital economy is not something that's new. We heard about the MSE, which took place in 1996. Then we had the rollout in 2004. And there was also a national broadband initiative in 2010. Digital Malaysia, there was a national policy on science, technology, innovation in 2012, and the big data analytics, open data initiatives in 2014. And in 2015, there was actually an IoT strategic roadmap. And then a series of other initiatives took place in 2016 and 17. And we were fortunate to work on a 4IR policy for EPU about 2 years ago. And that sort of culminated into the Digital Economy Blueprint. And now we've got the National Fiberization Plan. We have Industry Forward. We have a Smart City Framework. And they formed the 5G Task Force in 2018. So all of this essentially sits back on the wider ambit of 4IR. And these are some of the initiatives that came out of that document. We had 60 sectorial initiatives, for example, in agriculture or manufacturing or education. And on national initiatives, there were 32, focused around 5 core technologies and 16 strategies. A lot of it was around people, trying to equip people with the skill sets that are necessary. A lot of it was around infrastructure, digital infra, and future-proofing regulations, because regulations need to change, they need to adapt, we need to do new things. For example, flying a drone, who would you go to get that approval? You know, is it the Ministry of Transport or so on? So we need to have agile regulations in order to adapt and harness technology. And finally, it was really around accelerating R&D as well, because we have lacked on R&D spend, especially in digital. The other things that were essentially looked at, there were essentially a lot of focus around AI, IoT, and blockchain. There was also a lot of financial support that was necessary to facilitate the adoption of technology. And this is important because people, especially SMEs, tend to feel that they don't have enough money to invest into technologies, and they basically need to have much more guided program, especially involving the government. Now, on infra, the digital infra strengthening was extremely important, and we'll talk a bit about this in a while. And of course, the skill sets, how do we train and talent and move people up the value chain? There were several policy responses regarding each of this. I won't go into more detail in this, but happy to discuss offline or in the Q&A. We had something also on the 4IR innovation parks, application centers, the government services on cloud. We had quite a bit of strategies around cybersecurity, which is extremely important right now. And we need more CISOs organizations. And also several collaborations with the World Economic Forum in terms of doing labs and innovation aspects of that. Now, let me talk a bit about the digital side. So basically, the whole digital blueprint is about the digital divide. Yeah, in urban centers, we tend to have very easy access to telco and mobile and internet. But there's actually quite a bit of divide when you start going into rural Malaysia. And this is a problem because with technology and with access to internet, it actually changes lives and improves GDP. So there's a couple of focuses around speed and also trying to make some of the targets where 90% of all the government services to go online and have quite more e-payments, to move the entire aspect of data center markets and also e-commerce. So when we looked at some of the statistics, it's not that great. Only about 35% of micro SMEs actually deploy and use Internet of Things solutions, which are actually quite straightforward. And 50% of them are using some form of data analytics. 70% are still referring to spreadsheets. So when we talk about data analytics, people are still thinking I'm using an Excel, so I'm digital. But that's nowhere near the power of digitalization. And of course, cloud computing is something that is moving on, which Harish will talk more about. So the blueprint is essentially done in 3 phases. The phases essentially start off with strengthening the foundation of digital adoption in the next 2 years. And then it's going to drive that whole digital transformation and then go into digital content and cybersecurity lead in the regional market. There are 4 key digital infra projects under My Digital, which is under a PPP. Of course, the Jendela program is there, which is over 5 years. That's 21 billion. There's a project of about 1.65 on telecommunications, sub-sea cable networks over the next 2 to 3 years. And of course, the 15 billion on 5G, which has now been set up under Digital National Berhad, which is also going to create its own job service provider, and about 12 to 15 to invest in cloud service providers over the next 5 years for data storage and reducing operating costs. Now, the targets of My Digital is essentially in 5 years. It's also a job creation platform, 100% of households to have internet, all students to have access to online learning, and businesses to increase productivity, to empower the micro, small industries. And they have a target to attract 2 unicorns and investment of about 70 billion in digitalization. And of course, to increase the number of startups, because the startups or the entrepreneurs would be able to adapt and use technology to get a much more adopted manner with the larger organization, because a lot of the larger organizations are having difficulty to do the R&D. So this is where the startups come in. And of course, in the government side, it's a strong target to have essentially 100% of civil servants to possess digital literacy, and to end 80% services, all ministries to provide the cashless option and cloud storage. So the whole digital economy blueprint essentially has 6 thrusts and 22 strategies and 48 national and sectorial initiatives. So we'll talk a bit about the Digital National Berhad, which has been in the news for the last couple of weeks. So DNB has actually already been set up to deploy 5G infra network, and it will be subject to under the MCMC to make sure that have open, fair, and equal access. Now, the key in DNB, it's basically a wholesaler of 5G network services, which means all the telcos would come in and latch on to use it as an infra. And that's probably going to have efficiencies, and it's going to have a lot more neutrality, so that you don't have different people having vested interest to drop prices and so on. And of course, the DNB is under an SPV under MOF. So in conclusion, I think on 4IR and digital, I think we are on the right track. We are a little bit late, but I think it's better late than never. And I think a lot of countries are moving very, very fast in this. We've seen Indonesia do quite a bit of things recently. We've seen Vietnam getting quite a bit of investments in this space as well. But as an economy moving from 20% digital to about 40, 50 would be the target I would look at. It does require several basic infrastructures in place. But more importantly, for all of those who are listening, you need a digital strategy. And without a digital strategy in your organization, I think you may be left behind, and you may have your cheese moved. So this is very important. However small or large organization, you must look at the digital strategy and at least have a plan in place so that you know how to address these changes when it happens. So that's about the 4IR and the digital side. And what I will do is I will hand over to Harish to take you through digital transformation, which is focusing around how do you go about it and why do you actually need to do it. So I'll pause there and hand over to Harish. Thank you.
Thanks, Girish. Now, let me just share my screen. All right, thank you, Girish, and thank you, MDBC, Marco, and team for inviting me to speak this afternoon on digital transformation for success. So essentially what Girish covered just now was pretty much the policies and the whole national digital policies and frameworks. But as an organization, where do I start? What do I do? Where am I now? Questions that I will try to answer this afternoon in my presentation. And hopefully, after that, you can post any questions you may have. Just to jump into it straight away, essentially, is there an app for that? I think that's a question a lot of people ask when they ask to look at processes and tasks and so on. But I think today there's pretty much an app for everything, right? So digital is reshaping almost every industry today. And digital transformation is not about building a website or an app, or a lot of organizations tend to get tied up or hung up over technology and the various new, if it's sexy, let's do it, you know, why can't we implement AI? Why can't we jump into big data and so on? But a lot of them do it without realizing or without doing proper planning. And they need to plan and strategize first before they get into any form of any sort of digital transformation. So therefore, technology is only one part of the whole transformation process. And when an organization embarks on transformation, especially digital transformation, they need to look at it as a whole. It impacts the whole organization all the way down. You need to get the buy-in. The founders and board have to buy in and agree to set up whether it's a transformation office or a department, because as you start embarking on your journey, it's not a journey that lasts for a month or two or a year or three. You know, it's an ongoing process, the whole digital transformation. The older an organization is, the tougher it is, because there's a lot of structures within the organization that needs to be transformed. And I'll take you through how we can approach this. So what is digital transformation? I think it's many things, actually. It's not just one thing. Firstly, it's about building or looking at solutions that deliver on an organization's value proposition. You might already have a value proposition today, but I think with this age and time and the way things move, especially in the digital technology space, it might be a good time to relook at it and see what's new and how do I engage with my customers even more effectively. It also is about enhancing the organization's existing assets and capabilities, processes, and building and creating new customer value, and what can I offer to my customers, and how do I look at loyalty and retention. There's also adoption of new technologies. A lot of this seems to be the starting place for a lot of organizations, but this is start here. You need to start with a proper strategy in place, and then only look at the technologies and see what technology fits. It's also about improving the performance and reach of an organization, efficiencies, productivity. And organizations today, I mean, one of the key reasons why they should adopt or start their journey with digital transformation or continue to enhance their current journeys is basically to adapt with the changing trend in the market and fend off disruption and remain competitive. I think if you look at all the startups that are coming out today, a lot of them are displacing a lot of the old traditional companies. So you need to embark on a digital transformation path to basically fend off this disruption and remain competitive and relevant in this age and time. Benefits and key deliverables. I believe that some of the key benefits in implementing digital transformation is essentially it needs to impact your bottom line. If not, why ahead, go and do it and invest in it. There needs to be clear results and KPI driven to drive revenues and margins. Looking at customer loyalty, a lot of organizations also tend to forget the customer. I think in any transformation program, the customer needs to be at the center of it. The ability to retain and attract top talent, employee retention, and looking at processes, and also operational excellence in terms of the entire organization. So this is what the key outcomes you get from implementing a digital transformation plan or a clear path and strategy. And this would essentially drive value in terms of customer, employee, and value to the organization as a whole. Now, the impact of COVID has impacted a lot of digital transformation efforts. I think the organizations that are a lot more mature or that have started their journey responded quite well with the whole pandemic. The ones that are less digitally mature are still trying to figure out things, but I think they're progressing. I think a lot of boards and senior management and many organizations are a lot more aware of what technology can do today, especially from the use cases of working at home and how do I reach out to my customers with digital marketing, direct selling, and there's a lot of more growth initiatives. And I think the focus on digitally driven innovation has also accelerated in the current pandemic and the current climate. So if you look at spend in terms of IT spend, based on a survey done, I think a lot of organizations last year and this year have spent a lot more and will be continued spending in terms of implementing technologies that will help them with their transformation journey. In terms of state of digital transformation, acceleration based on a survey expected to change digital transformation pace. A lot of organizations feel that it will be accelerated with the current climate and the current pandemic. I think, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of organizations, boards, and senior management are a lot more aware, and this will continue to increase. Now let's look in the region, Europe in the region, and also in Malaysia in terms of the state. 80% of leading European businesses say digital transformation is their current strategic priority. 64 organizations in Asia Pacific and Japan moving or investing into cloud applications. 58% are looking at software as a service to help them with their internal processes and implementations. And in Malaysia, based on a Forrester research study, 46% of firms in Malaysia are already started their journey on digital transformation. And also a lot of them are looking at digital transformation this year or looking to start your journey this year in terms of implementing strategy and plans. This is very important, I think, as organizations, looking at where you are today and assessing your current capabilities and maturity in terms of digital. A lot of organizations, I believe, have very much in the opportunistic and repeatable, either a digital player or a digital explorer. And the key here is, how do I scale up? How do I move to become a transformer or even a disruptor? That's the opportunity a lot of organizations need to aim for and try to strive to achieve. And this will give them results in terms of business growth and better engagement with their customers and employees and so on. So this is something we help out a lot of our clients, especially in terms of identifying where they are. And it's important to look at, before you start your journey, where you are, and see how to plan the path forward and where you want to be with a clear vision and goal. I think with a lot of successful companies today have implemented digital transformation plans, whether it's Microsoft or Hasbro or Honeywell, Nike, it's all ongoing. They started back in the early 2000s, right, to stay relevant, because they knew they were losing market share. And this has provided them with a direct impact to their bottom line and even their stock prices. Some more examples in terms of digital transformation over the years, especially with these large companies and brands. Amazon's B2B platform, Live Expert, which engages, interacts manufacturers and shoppers. Audi's digital showroom in London, which they launched in 2012 and has given them significant growth. Real-time asset performance management platform for GE. A very old company like GE has done some very successful projects in terms of implementing digital wind farms and projects in digital transformation, which has given them significant results. My favorite, Lego, where looking at crowd ideation and co-creation platforms, where they're able to engage with the customer and open up their ideation platform for their community to engage and provide ideas. McDonald's, in terms of consumer behavior, analyzing consumer behavior and needs, and driving this through social media platforms in terms of real-time offers and trends based on what their customers are looking for. They did this very well during the Super Bowl football championship. Starbucks, who are investing heavily into digital transformation in terms of mobile apps, mobile ordering, payments, and so on, in terms of building their loyalty base, and also collecting data to understand their customers better and providing better value to their customers in terms of what they're looking for. So there's some examples. There are many out there on terms of successful companies who have embarked on digital transformation. But at the same time, there's also many failures out there. I think a lot of companies have tried it and have not gotten very far with it, or do not know where to go. I think this mainly got to do with the talent and the people that they have in the organization, driving the whole transformation process. So in terms of our strategic approach, when we engage with our clients, and this is basically a framework that we look at working on, it's basically two parts. One is on operational transformation, which looks at internal processes to drive efficiency, scale, cost reduction, and productivity. And this has impact throughout all pillars and all departments within the organization. And this is driven, of course, with the right strategy, right processes, the right people and drivers, and the right technology. And the other side, which is the most critical, where transformation has the greatest impact on, is the consumer-centric transformation, which basically looks at or relooks at your current business model and ways to unlock growth. And you do this by looking at your customer, your market, your competition, what values you drive, the data that you have today, and what you plan to do, have a clear data strategy, and looking at innovation in terms of how do I innovate, how do I compete, how do I maintain relevant, and what technologies do I use. So let me take you through in a bit more detail. In terms of internal, it's about employee, because a lot of internal processes are tied to the departments, and departments are run by the people within it. I think their experience is very critical. What do I implement? How do I drive productivity and efficiency is very important. Cloud adoption, I think moving applications to the cloud would be something that's very, as a first step, would be critical to look at. Security is another key area to look at. I think a lot of organizations don't realize that with the cybersecurity threats out there, majority of it comes from within the organization, the threats. Looking at SaaS, there's a lot of SaaS tools out there, software as a service tools. For example, marketing technology tools, there's many out there which can be implemented and used within the organization. I think marketing and digital marketing would be the oldest, I think, because it started way back in the late 90s or early 2000s in terms of looking at communication and marketing services. So there's a lot of MarTech tools out there. Automation and mechanization. Looking at data integration, a lot of organizations tend to sit on data, and data seems to be in silos. So how do I integrate this for better decision making? New areas of innovation, looking at processes, and how do I streamline our processes, make it effective? And essentially, the goal of this is basically to drive productivity, effectiveness, and efficiencies. Looking at software as a service for various departments, I mean, this list here is just a snapshot of what's available out there. I think when embarking on any of these solutions, you need to drive it from a strategic point of view. Don't be afraid to try out a few of these. Not one solution is going to be a fit for all your requirements. So you might need to look at a few, and don't be afraid to test and fail. Right. The key here is try it out. A lot of these are on subscription basis. You can use it for a couple of months. If it doesn't work, you can always unsubscribe and you subscribe to another platform that fits more suited. Some of these organizations and startups and also platforms offer customization. So you're able to customize based on your requirement. Now let's look at the more critical part in terms of driving transformation from digital transformation from being to be a customer-centric transformation. This has direct impact to the business model and the business itself. So it needs to be driven from top down, and it's about re-engineering your whole business, and it has will drive significant impact if done properly, and essentially it needs to unlock growth. So critical impact, it does have an impact to the bottom line. It needs to improve customer experience. Customer here is very key because they are the influencers of today. They need to be engaged in terms of the whole customer journey from purchase, loyalty, advocacy, and so on. Looking at competition, I think those were the days when we look at our competitors as just competitors. I think there's a lot of opportunities if you look at the startups, whether it's Uber, Grab, and so on, who are cooperating with their competitors. I think a good example with the banks, how they embrace and are slowly looking at bringing in fintechs, financial technology companies to offer various services that they can offer. And essentially this will drive greater value to the customers. Uncover new opportunities with changing customer demands, being data-driven. Again, I think looking at data, not only just from marketing, but across the whole organization and customer data, what do we do with it? How do we understand the behaviors of our customer and have a clear strategy in terms of data? And also in this case is when you look at innovation, be prepared to experiment, do try out, do test, and also don't be afraid of failing. The only way to learn and innovate is to fail. A lot of startup and large organizations, whether it's Apple or Microsoft, all they had went through many failures to get where they are today. And regardless whether you're an SME or a large organization, I think you need to be ready to experiment and test and collaborate, and that's the only way to innovate. And the other area which I want to touch on a bit more is platforms. I think looking at building platforms as whether it's to service or better enhance your customer experience, or looking at platforms to disrupt the whole industry. And that's a key area that you might need to look into, or organizations need to look into to see what's the opportunity in that area. There's a bit more on customers. As we all know, customers today have changed a lot compared to 10 or 20 years ago. The whole sharing economy model has come about, and they're happy to share. And that's how your Ubers and Grabs of the world are progressing, because of this customer base, where they look at, for them, it's the environment and convenience, and rather not own assets anymore, and rather just rent it or subscribe to it. And this whole idea of sharing economy has driven the whole development of digital platforms and the rise of digital platforms, which has disrupted traditional business models. The traditional business models have always been pipelined from left to right, consumer to merchant, whether subscribers to advertisers, computer users, application developers. And with the current platforms that are available today, it's all about two-sided networks. Cost and revenue are at both ends. That's what drives up valuations for many of the startups and many of these large organizations in terms of their values, because they're able to derive networks on both sides and cost and revenue at both sides. Looking at organizations that successfully implemented great platforms, these are the top companies in the world today, whether it's Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook, Alibaba, all are platform companies who have got great business models and have also displaced many of the old traditional business models in their industry and segment. Another example is Airbnb versus Marriott. This is back in 2015. Airbnb was only 4 years old at this stage, and it overtook Marriott. What happened here and how did they go about doing it is because they had a two-sided network platform. And the best part is they didn't own any assets, unlike Marriott did. They just had subscribers on one end who wanted to travel places, and people who wanted to rent their houses and apartments and put it onto the platform. And there was a AI matching solution which on the platform that gave recommendations, and you could basically select a room or a house or whatever accommodation you required based on your destination you're heading to. So if you look at a comparison this is in 2015, Marriott was 88 years old, took them to get where they are, and Airbnb took them only 4 years to get to that point. And they had 650 rooms, and Marriott only had 697 rooms in 80 countries, and Airbnb was in 192 countries. Essentially, their platform improved experiences, engaged with the customer better. They managed to have better employee retentions, and they created a lot of partnerships and with a lot of organizations and even competition that they brought into the fold to expand and grow globally, right? So it's all about growth and scale. Brian Chesky, in his tweet, when Marriott made an announcement that they were looking to expand their rooms to 30,000, he tweeted back in 2014, right, that they were looking to add that in just 2 weeks, right, compared to a year. So that's the kind of scale platforms can derive, and benefits you can get off looking at platform or having a platform strategy or embarking on a platform strategy within an organization, or you could look at setting this up as a separate entity linked to the organization to drive this. So my last slide, just some key takeaways. So when you embark on digital transformation journey, look at leadership, vision. It needs to be top down. There needs to be commitment from at all levels. Know where you are today, assess your maturity level, create business and embrace new business models. Don't be afraid to try. Put your customer at the center of everything you do. I think you won't fail if you do that. Make sure you have the right data and understand your customer better. Leverage on internal and external data sources. Don't be afraid to experiment and fail. Think agile. This, I think, very important also. When you embark on any initiative, be prepared to do it in an agile manner. And hopefully this will give you some positive results. And also there's to be clear integration from the back end and front end and throughout the whole organization. So with that, I'll leave you this quote from Charles Darwin. I think it's very applicable for digital transformation. I think it's all about change, and the most adaptable to change will survive and will evolve and will grow eventually. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Girish and Harish, for sharing your insights and your experiences. All right, thank you for ending your screen share. Fantastic insights. Thank you so much. I think we have about 15 minutes left for some Q&A, and there has been some questions. So please, keep it as short and to the point as possible. And I'm happy to allow the first question to be a little bit of an opportunity for you to explain more about your activities and your services. Of course, you talked a lot about failing, test and fail. Don't be afraid to fail. Many of those examples were, of course, the larger companies, but Harish, we have to bring it back to the scale and the situation, the practical situation of SMEs. Now, what can 27 Group do to help SMEs, especially for an assessment of how ready the company is for this digital technology adoption? And there's also a question here from Karen. What are the typical questions with which you as 27 Digital help your clients? And how much can that mean for SMEs especially? So go ahead with that initial question on the services of your company.
Okay, I think when you look at SMEs, right, I think first thing is to look at their internal processes, look at internal transformation first. I think you can look at looking at small things. I think whether it's looking at digital marketing, look at HR tech, MarTech, and so on, and implementing these tools in stages. I think there's a lot of cost-effective tools out there that you can use today. In terms of looking at strategies to engage with the customer, I think there's also a lot of opportunities in that space for SMEs. What can they do better to engage their customer better? A lot of SMEs tend to hold a lot of data. They don't realize that, are they collecting the right data? That'll be a good place to look at, and a good starting point in terms of what do I do this data? So you need to have a data strategy in place to decide and make the right decisions to accelerate that process and engagement with the customer. Girish, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think it's we must not think, Marco. We must not think about SMEs anymore. Yeah, because it is the SMEs who are becoming the unicorn very quickly. So I think we should be thinking unicorn, and you start with the SMEs. I think that's how we should be looking at it. I think we've got this sort of barrier within us. I see a lot of entrepreneurs and small companies feel they can't grow and do something massive. So I think this is where I will start with. Change the mindset and don't be afraid to grow to become a unicorn. The rest of it is just processes. We've got all the methodologies and approaches and tools to assist and move forward. But if they don't have that vision and that need to do this, then I think we shouldn't even embark on it, right? In fact, you should maybe just close down your business because you won't be relevant anymore in a few years. But I think that's how I would approach it, yeah, because a lot of people ask us this question, and I think we start with that first. And we can do a digital readiness assessment. We can do all the approaches. We know what are the challenges in industries as well. Whether it's money, whether it's training, whether it's technology, and we've sort of figured out how to collaborate between SMEs and see how they can move forward.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'm actually looking forward to one of these days be able to organize a live event again and have a bit more of a discussion opportunity between you and perhaps some SMEs on that topic, how to really approach it and how can your mindset help them before they take that first step. All right, let's go for that in the next few months. All right, the first question that came in is a little bit related to some of the questions that came in later. Girish, you showed all these Malaysian plans related to the ICT sector. Past 10, 20 years, of course, we started with the MSC, the Multimedia Super Corridor, fantastic program by MDEC that attracted a lot of foreign investors. What would you consider the success rate of all these previous plans And now, what would be the critical success factor for this new national blueprint to succeed?
So I think government should be involved in policy and a little bit of the programs, but when you are implementing, whether ICT or digital or technology-related transformations, especially if they're national transformations, you need to have the programs and the projects delivered by private sector. Full stop. Yeah. You cannot have the government doing projects and they can do the policy and a bit of the program. So I think a lot of these blueprints are fantastic, but what we found, the ones that really make an impact are the ones where the government sticks to policy and hands over implementation with a bit of incentives to private sector to move forward. And those things are very successful in Malaysia. You have a lot of PPPs that have been implemented successfully. Give you an example of Tenaga Nasional, for example. Look at the privatization of services. So we need to think in that model, and I think DNB is a good start because you have an independent government organizing infra, which essentially is setting policy on prices and so on. But it's not easy because it needs a lot of money. And I think the idea here is to get private sector to come in and invest. So that's the part which is critical. And we need to focus a lot on this to convince the private sector to invest. And then I think a lot of these blueprints would be implemented according to what they initiated out to do.
Okay, you mentioned the private sector. For us as a bilateral chamber of commerce, and there's a few people from the Netherlands in this webinar, I think also quite an interesting question about how would foreign companies get involved in this ICT ecosystem. And yeah, yes, definitely a good point that the program should be mainly executed by the private sector, but we also know that in Malaysia, government sector and private sector are often very much aligned. So what kind of opportunities will there indeed be for, let's say, the free private sector to be involved in tenders, and especially the opportunities for new foreign companies that want to enter the Malaysian market?
So the bad news is, yeah, a lot of the tenders tend to require local interest, right? But the good news is we're talking about technology, and to be honest, Malaysia doesn't own or produce much technology. So a lot of this will have to come from overseas, working with local partners. For the Netherlands, I would be very certain there are opportunities in the space of agri-tech, because I've seen the wonderful things that Dutch have done. And I think there's a lot of focus on agri-tech right now. In fact, we are working on several very large initiatives on agri-tech. And I think that would be a separate session, Marco, just to bridge all the technology providers or the solutions and services from Netherlands. And we could have a very good engagement, because there's massive opportunity happening right now in agri and food.
Yeah, thank you, Girish. We are actually looking into this together with the Netherlands Embassy. All right, where are we with the type questions? My chairman didn't want to use the Q&A. He posted something in the chat, but of course I have to give preferential treatment to my chairman. Zainal, let me read what you wrote in the chat. You say customers should always be at the center of any digitalization consideration. While the younger customers will be comfortable to migrate to the digital world, how do you cater for the older generation who are less IT savvy? Come on, I know you're still pretty young. Take the banking world, for instance. They are moving more and more to a virtual world, onboarding customers virtually. There's no more the personal human touch. How do you reconcile this loss of human touch to care for your customers? And this comes forth out of your comment just now about no more looking at SMEs, but only at unicorns and the digital progress.
Yeah, so maybe
Harish wants to take this one.
I think the key thing here is understanding your customers, and it's all about customer experience. essentially. When you, whether it's a banking product or a FMCG product or a service you offer to your customers, knowing your customer and how do you engage with the customer, you know, regardless whether you're old or young, you're gone with the days where you engage with your customers with the same method or same touch points, you know. So with older customers, I think like a banking industry and all that, where they tend to still go into the banking halls and do their banking. They still prefer customer-facing interactions. Those are things that you can't run away from. You can't put an AI in front of them and get them to engage with it. No, it won't work. So I think it's up to the brands itself and the organization itself in terms of how they want to engage with the customers. I think there are a lot of technologies and also methods and processes and strategies that can be used to engage customers at different levels and build that kind of experience for the customer, regardless of age. And not one size fits all. Yeah.
I think I can add there to answer Dato's question. Humans are still humans, right? We're not changed because we don't go to a branch and deposit a check or talk to the relationship manager. So what we need to do is just move that into a digital process. Yeah, and that's about it. And if you have used a lot of these online banking tools, you know, I'm just embarking to teach my mother how to use online banking right now. She refused to. She was always going to the bank and depositing checks, but she realized the speed at which it could be done, and she said, "You got to teach me how to use it." So I said, "Okay." Now, if that experience is simple, you know, this is what Harish is talking about: simple, engaging. It's almost like a game, you know, it's like a video game that you're playing and you love to do online banking. I think more people will go on to it. But right now, some of these online banking solutions are, you know, you need a PhD to use the damn thing. So this is the part which we need to go more in, you know, and have that interaction. You've got a lot of tools right now where you're actually chatting to a robot, but it's actually, you know, coming out as a human being on the other side. You know, you have avatars and so on. So I think all of this is going to change, and the bank that has the most sophisticated online tool is probably going to get the money, not the interest rates or so on, because I can use it easily and I'm happy to use it every day. And that's customer experience.
All right, thank you for that, Zaino. You can take this to your next bank board meeting, and I think it will be very good input coming from you there. All right, thank you for your answers on this one. We have a few questions from our good friend Vanessa, who's working for The Edge, the daily newspaper. I think it might be very useful for both of you maybe to have a chat outside this webinar. She's definitely come up with a very few relevant questions. One of them I would like to pick up on the public-private partnership. What kind of public-private partnership do you foresee happening to facilitate the digital transformation, and how should businesses position themselves to contribute to this transformation? Again, coming back to the private sector, what is their role in this? Girish, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think the question that is on everybody's mind is the My Digital Blueprint. Is it an aggressive or is it passive? Is it going to happen? And so on. Now, there's a mixed bag in here, which I will answer Vanessa's first question as well. In terms of the target, there are significant milestones to achieve, and I think some of them are actually quite pessimistic, especially the percentage of digital economy contribution to GDP, 22.6%. I think we should be aiming for at least 30 to 40% in the short term. And the beauty of digital is you saw Harish's slide on Airbnb, and within 4 years they did what Marriott did in 88 years. So I think that's something that we definitely can do more of. In terms of the job creation, I think it is a fantastic opportunity right now to create a lot more jobs using digital, because we need to create at least 500,000 jobs which we lost in the last 12 months. Yeah, and that's very important right now. So the job creation target should be much higher. The challenges are essentially, private sector. Now, how do we get private sector to come in and invest in a post-COVID era where businesses are challenged with their own internal problems? So my thoughts are we need to work definitely in PPPs, and I think that is the only way out. And PPPs essentially are using private sector money with expertise where government comes in. So maybe there are joint ventures that need to take place between GLCs and private sectors, and do this together, because it's tough times, but without we also look at this as an opportunity. So PPPs definitely are the way forward, and to me it's around building those incentives to make sure the PPPs work. Yeah, the old incentives are not going to work anymore. Just giving tax breaks and so on are not going to work. We need softer infrastructure provisions. We need to make sure we're dealing with knowledge workers very carefully, without flip-flop policies that are going to have a problem, because we need knowledge workers for technology, and we do not have the skill sets in Malaysia ready as yet. The last point, Marco, is I think for PPPs to really work, we must have strong institutions in the government who understand and who can deal with the private sector. Yeah, because you're negotiating a contract here, and if you don't have people within the government who understand the complexities of these contracts, we're not going to move anywhere.
Well, we do understand that some people from the Innovation Agency have moved to MIDA. Some people from MDEC have moved to MIDA on the innovation side. So we do hope that a certain expertise remains with the authorities to indeed start the process that you're just talking about. All right, Vanessa, I hope that your questions were answered, and as I said, would be possible to link you guys up outside the show as well. We got one question left, so let's end with that. It's a few minutes past 4 local time. Questions from Jason. What are the challenges in digital transformation and how to overcome these challenges in the organization? Harish, perhaps there's a little bit more you would like to elaborate based on this question?
Sure. I think Girish mentioned quite a bit, and it's in his earlier question, and it's related to people. I think a lot of organizations tend to embark without the right people, without the right skill sets. I think it's as you go through your assessment in terms of identifying your digital maturity, it's also important to assess your people. You know, are they ready? Do you have the right people to embark on the journey itself? And also a lot of people, organizations tend to embark on it with where they think they can influence and change the culture, but it doesn't work that way, right? It takes a lot, right? It takes the right skills and the right mindset and change mentality inculcated in the whole culture to drive the change and to embark on digital transformation journey.
Yeah, I think, Marco, I'd like to add to what Harish said. So when you look at the My Digital Blueprint, there is an institution that has been sort of suggested, which is, this is the first time that you have in a public policy document a strategic change management unit that has been put in. And this is very crucial, because to drive change, whether it's public sector or private sector, especially from a national perspective, you must have what we call the program management officers or the strategic change managers. And this is crucial because you're convincing people in bite sizes how to move differently every week or every month. And to do this within the government is going to be challenging. Especially when we have not a very strong political sort of framework that's happening right now, and it's going to be difficult. But as long as the ministries and the state agencies are able to do their parts, and then you have a national coordination unit that drives, I think we would be successful. But it starts with the leadership, right? It starts with the leadership in any change. In any organization, it starts with the leadership. So this is going to be the part which I think we really need to pay a lot of attention to. and we should not mix politics into business and the government. I think this is this can derail the whole plan if we don't set up these institutions correctly with private sector and let them move ahead, so that at least the business and the economy picks up and recovers from post-COVID. And this is going to be crucial to watch over the next 6 months.
I agree 100%, Girish, absolutely. And fortunately, as far as we can see, there's a lot of talent that remains with the authorities, and that can indeed be a good partner for the private sector. And that's where we of course come in as well to monitor if the private sector finds an open ear with the authorities. That will continue, especially in opportunities like we have been given now through the blueprint. All right, I think Girish, Harith, thanks again for your insights and openness in answering the questions. Ladies and gentlemen of the audience, whether you're live directly with us on Zoom, or whether you're on our YouTube channel or in the ConnectSphere auditorium, you're spread out over a few different venues. Thank you so much for attending this very valuable and informative hour. Enjoy the rest of the day. Please explore the ConnectSphere a bit more, the booth of the 40 MDBC members and the service providers. We look forward to see you again, live or online. Some of you in the months of April, maybe some of you in June, which was the preferred answer just now, or later in the year, or maybe even 2022. But one thing you can be assured of is that we will remain the engagement with constant activities, whether it's online or live. You just saw our program in the lead-up slides. We will continue to have 2, 3, 4 different activities every month. So thank you again. That's the end of today's webinar. The ConnectSphere booth will remain open, not just today, but every day, 24/7, except for your chat messages might not be answered immediately after today, but the booth will remain open. So thank you so much for being part of this today. We're all in this together. Let's stay positive and support each other. Thank you again, Girish, Harish, 27 Group.
Yep.
And see you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you.